Let's say, you know, this is the get home scenario where the EMP has happened and the world is freaking out. Hey guys, welcome back. I just finished about a 3-mile ruck and about 200 push-ups with this rucksack on. And I just recently went through all this stuff and I got rid of a bunch of junk that I don't really need. There's a lot of stuff in our packs that we go months and months and months and we never ever use the stuff that's in there. So sometimes it's just good to go have a purge, you know, just get in there, dig through and ask yourself if I need this or I don't need it. Get rid of the stuff that you don't need, or perhaps keep some of it in your truck for if the situation should change. Added 10 extra pounds to my pack to help make it more realistic to simulate a longer ruck march, basically. So anyway, let's get started. It's quite difficult to film in the rain sometimes. Audio sometimes gets really messed up, so I apologize if that's the problem, but the temperature is warm and it's raining. So what do? If you're on the move, and you're going fast, you're pushing hard well, at least in my goal would be to get home as quick as possible in this scenario. What do? Do you put rain gear on and just sweat? That doesn't make a lot of sense either. So when the temperature is like it is right now, warm, and it's raining, just get wet. But the key is, once you're wet, don't stop. Just keep moving. And if you decide to stop, go ahead and change into your dry clothing, assuming you have it in your pack like I do. Change into your dry clothing as quickly as possible to avoid that rapid cooling. You don't want that. My pack, I don't know how much it weighs. I don't have a scale, but I'm guessing it weighs about 35 pounds probably. That's including a quart of water and 10 extra pounds of ankle weights that I threw in there. The only thing not in my pack right now that I normally would have, and the ankle weights are simulating that, is my sleeping bag and food. I'm gonna utilize this shelter that I built last week. Let's say I've been hiking all day long. I've covered 15 miles, whatever it is. I'm soaking wet. It's still actively raining. The first thing that I wanna do if I've decided I need to make camp because I haven't made it to my destination yet is I'm just gonna set up my simple shelter. I'm gonna rig up my poncho, get me out of the rain, and I'm gonna change into my dry clothes. I've treated my pack with Scotchgard and it's doing a pretty good job of keeping the contents of my pack dry. I like to keep short little pieces of bank line attached to the corners of my poncho, so any stake, even one that I can make out of a big stick, will fit through there really easily. All right, there's my quickie shelter right there. Let's say, you know, this is the get home scenario where the EMP has happened and the world is freaking out, right? People have lost their minds and they're a lot more on edge. And I want to have a discreet shelter. I don't want to advertise that, hey, here I am, I'm camping out, perhaps on private property. This shelter would be very difficult to see from anywhere except from basically right here on top of it. I like to keep some garbage bags. These are 42-gallon drum liners. They're about the right size for a poncho, makeshift poncho. They do a good job of like a ground sheet, and that's what I'd use it for right now because this bed, this bushcrafty bed that I made last week, while it is nice and squishy, it has gotten rained on it and is wet. So if I'm gonna dry off by getting into my dry clothes, it would kind of defeat the purpose if I didn't have something at least a little bit drier to sit down on. I've treated my pack with Scotchgard, which is helping it shed some rain. And man, when it was pouring down rain when I was hiking, I did about 3 miles in the literal pouring rain, just getting drenched, and the inside of my pack is still bone dry. My backup clothes that I want to keep extra dry, make sure that they stay dry, are in here. Here's a towel. This is a multi-purpose cloth from Primitive Wilderness Survival that I can use to dry my body off after I've gotten wet, which is going to be really nice. And then I've also got a Ziploc bag. I could swim with this pack in my clothes. My spare clothes would stay dry because I've got a dry bag inside of a dry bag inside of a semi-dry bag. I've got my thermals. This is top and bottom long johns. I'm gonna go ahead and change into those. Dry socks and a wool cap. I've also got a dry outer layer, this insulating poofy down jacket right here, which is gonna be really, really nice. Inside of here is my inflatable mattress. Very, very handy. Super handy to have, and very, very comfortable, insulates you from the floor, the cold, hard ground. Even if you didn't build this really nice bushcrafty bed, which I'm sitting on, it is very, very nice, and you don't feel the cold ground at all. You know, I could lift this poncho shelter up a little bit higher and give me a little bit more room to work, and I wouldn't have to be hunched over like this. But again, if you want your shelter to blend into its environment, you got to keep it low to the ground. Bliss, it's got to blend in. So a camouflage shelter such as this poncho is a good idea. It's got to be low to the ground. It's got to be irregular shaped, not like a bunch of straight lines. This is actually too much of a straight line if I was really trying to camouflage it. It can't be shiny. So there's no sheen on this poncho. There's nothing, reflective about it. And it's got to be in a secluded location, and I feel like this checks pretty much all of those boxes. One other thing that's not in my pack is a bivy bag. I have ordered an SOL breathable bivy bag, but it just hasn't showed up yet, and that is what's going to be going in here. I used to carry around a military Gore-Tex bivy bag, and I really like it a lot, but because it's durable, but it's so big. It just takes up so much space in your pack. Here comes the rain again. The very last thing that I would do is change into my dry layers, because what if I got to get out and do something else and still get drained on? So I'm not going to change into those dry layers until the very last minute, until I'm ready to lay down and go to sleep, basically. All right, there's my shelter as the rain's starting to come now. Got it tied off to a ridge line here in the middle. See that? So I've just used the hood drawstring to secure it to a ridge line. Got it tied out here in the middle too to help shed some water and give me a little bit more room on the inside, and then just staked out on 3 sides and then tied up over here just to give me a little bit more headroom. That's a muddy mess. We need to fix that. Put some leaves down there. Wet leaves, but they're not muddy. I'll take it. Strip off everything. Trying to stay out of the mud. In weather like this is where a much bigger shelter would come in handy. A big tarp, like I've got a 10x10 tarp that I like. But it's really big and it's really heavy, and is it necessary? Do I need it? I don't know. Probably not 99% of the time, but every now and then when the weather's really bad and you just really need a bigger space, or if you have multiple people that you're trying to shelter. That's why I keep a big tarp in my truck. And if I should be doing this scenario with multiple people that are not as individually prepared as I am, I can shelter them as well with a big tarp. Shirt comes off. For a base layer, merino wool is about the best thing that you could get. It's really hard to beat merino wool. Even if it's wet, it'll still keep you warm to a certain degree, obviously. Not to a certain degree. You see what I did there? Another reason why a big shelter is super handy in nasty weather is because you can hang your stuff up, hang your wet clothes up on like a ridge line and get it dried out. In this situation where it's still actively raining, it's going to be tough to get your clothes to be dry. And then imagine that I'm in my sleeping bag, right? Curled up in my sleeping bag with a bivy bag over top of that. I would be pretty cozy in here. I've got my dry clothes on. I'm feeling pretty good about life once you get settled in. Tomorrow would be a whole nother story when you got to get up and do it again. But as of now, things are pretty good. And I've got a lot of airspace underneath my poncho shelter here, and that's on purpose because the weather is so warm and it's so wet. I want some ventilation in here so I can get potentially stuff to dry out. Well, it's not going to dry out, but it would be better than closing it all in. If the weather was really, really cold, if I had clear skies and it was freezing cold, I would make sure that all these corners were down all the way and there was almost no space, if any at all, so I could trap in more of my body heat. If these were dry leaves, this would be a bad idea, but these leaves are soaking wet and there's no way that I'll be catching them on fire. One of the things that's not mentioned much that I like a lot about these fire sleeves from Exotac is that they're kind of rubbery, silicone-y, and they stay in your pocket. So if you take your pants off, turn your pants upside down, they don't fall out. I lose like multi-tools and pocket knives and stuff like that a lot, but this has never ever came out of my pocket. I could obviously start a fire, dry out my clothes, and sleep by a fire and stay warmer and all that stuff. But in this scenario, we're trying to keep a little bit lower profile, and that's where this little alcohol stove comes in really, really handy. It's not something I'm going to keep in my pack all the time because I just don't use it. I like to cook and by open fires. I sleep by open fires, and that's just how I usually operate. But in this low profile, more risky situation, open fire is not going to be as good of an idea, and that's where this little alcohol stove is really going to shine. If you guys haven't already hit the thumbs up, please do that. I would really, really appreciate it. And subscribe if you haven't done so already. Make sure you check out the Survival Dispatch store. The link will be in the description. You will not appreciate anything more than being able to put on some dry clothes after being soaking wet, especially if it's cold outside. So dry base layer at a minimum. Highly recommend that. Another piece of gear that I highly recommend that you guys carry is some sort of multi-purpose cloth like this one. In the summertime, you can help keep the mosquitoes off of you. You can wrap it around your face. In the wintertime, it can be an extra layer that you could wrap up in, wear it as a scarf, that kind of stuff, and it makes a really big difference. Just using it as a towel is super handy. All right, we got a little break in the rain, it looks like, so I'm going to use this opportunity to pack up and let's simulate that I've got a decent night's rest. It's morning now. I'm gonna get out of here and finish the trip home. Now the last thing you're going to want to do in the morning is put on your nasty clothes again, but unfortunately, unless you've got several changes of clothes, that's what's going to happen. But it only sucks at the very first. Once you start moving again and generating body heat, you're going to be okay. Hopefully you've stretched your clothes out and they've dried out at least a little bit over the night. And if it stopped raining at all and you were able to build a fire or whatever, you could put a clothesline up and get your clothes good and dry. But not always the perfect scenario, not always the perfect situation. Sometimes you just got to deal with it as it comes. Oh yeah. Better than a cup of coffee, I tell you what. Wet pants. Ooh. Here comes the rain again. Better hustle. We're back on the move just as the rain starts to come back. Excellent. I guess it's worth mentioning that you may choose to use the roads, the trails, or not. I guess it would depend really on the level of everybody's excitement. So maybe some big event just happened and I've got a day and a half hike home. I'm just going to push it probably on the road as fast as I can and get home before chaos sets in. Maybe not. Maybe more time has passed and I need to be a lot more stealthy, and maybe I'm just hand railing the roads, staying off of them and keeping a really, really low profile and just trying to ensure that nobody sees me. As I make it home, the sun tries to come out. Wouldn't you know it? And just the way it goes, huh? Anybody ever else feel like you're in a constant state of packing and unpacking and drying and packing and unpacking? Sometimes it feels like that's my job. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. Make sure you're hitting the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Leave lots of comments. Tell me what you think about this scenario. What did I do wrong? I'm sure you're thinking it.